Welcome to the Field Lab podcast. We know that you're all here because you're passionate about health, learning about true health. Maybe it's keeping your health, maybe it's finding your health, maybe it's helping someone else with their health. We all have different reasons why we're here. If you run a human day connected to a really good environment that's filled with light, water, magnetism, that's filled with love and community, that is how humans default to health. Hello, everyone. This is a conversation about detox. It's something that comes up over and over and over again. It's been weaved throughout my 20-year career, even a little further back in school, and week after week, it always comes up. So this is a true conversation in the field today about detox and why we're going to push back on that terminology. And hopefully at the end of this conversation, you will understand why we say you must redox before detox. And it's a really important concept to understand because we are living in times where detoxing may not be what you want to consider if you want to have more health. And that might sound a little provocative, but it's what we see in practice. And it's been a very different detox end result 20 years later than when I started in 2006. So I think it's we kind of put this one to the top because we noticed that oftentimes, like seasonally, we'll get a lot of conversations about detoxing. So we are coming into kind of our spring, summer season. So we've gotten a lot of questions about detoxing, especially in the last few weeks. We always get it around winter, after the holidays.
Definitely seasonal shifts.
We sometimes get it into the fall, but it's a really tough one. And I'm going to say it's really tough because this comes really like close to home where I think I can speak very clearly about detox as a functional medicine practitioner from my former past that was trained very much at the time when this concept grew and kind of grew out of the functional medicine space. So I think it's really important to start with a little bit of the history. So that way we can kind of journey along together. Because quite honestly, I was taught the ins and outs of detox, and in 2006, it worked really well. Now we're going to talk about that and why that happened and how I see it now. But I was never taught about redox potential. I was never taught any biophysics in school. And it really wasn't until I started working with actual humans that how they responded and what was happening with detoxing made me question whether that was the right thing to do for health. It might have been something that made people feel better, but feeling better isn't always providing more health.
No.
So guide me along, Noah, but I think that we should start a little bit with the history because I do remember kind of getting spit out of school with this being a very clear concept in my head that humans at the time of 2006 were being exposed to a lot of garbage food, garbage medications. There's a lot of garbage, garbage sprays, you name it. It was kind of the time when people were becoming aware of like organic food. So very much an awareness around like the toxicity of the environment. And I was taught quite a bit about the liver and the detox pathways, phase 1, phase 2 detox, and essentially taught to then deliver this story to patients, especially because at that time functional medicine was very much grabbing hold of, health is prevention. That if you want to have health, you have to be very proactive and very preventative about working very hard to detox your body from all the poisons that modern life was providing,
Hmm.
but that if you detoxed, like, you would be good.
Okay.
So I know in medical school, I worked with a lot of patients running through detoxes, and as a medical student, it was very clear that people felt better doing these detox programs. Now, I think it's also important to point out that most detox in 2006 was very liver focused, very generalized, very much with the idea of like cleansing the body, cleansing the liver, clearing out the garbage, and kind of resetting the base state of that person to health. That
Hmm.
that was the story.
Right.
Which ultimately I saw in practice that oftentimes patients before a detox and after a detox would absolutely feel better. Like,
Right.
as a medical student, it was very clear to me that when I came out of medical school, that this is something I embraced in my practice. And actually, I can say I guided many patients through varying levels of detox programs, 10-day detox, 28 detox, always around diet change and movement and supplementation, especially focused on phase one and phase two detox, very organized, very linear. And wow, in 2006, probably for about 10 years, it is what I really did with a lot of patients. That was sort of a first line of practice where if someone came in with a general not feeling well, they often really embraced doing detox
Hmm.
and often felt better
Mm.
from doing it. Now, the better wouldn't always be lasting.
Right. So it wasn't a permanent fix.
Wasn't a permanent fix. So often then it became, well, let's do this once a year. And
Hmm.
and in the functional medicine space, like, again, I think about as a young practitioner and seeing patients benefit, they loved doing it. I did group detoxes. We would run them every January. I mean, it really was a moment of feeling like it was moving the needle for
Yeah, you're doing something for your health.
right. I mean, and it's tough because I look back and I see it very differently, but it was a real moment of change in human health
Hmm.
that now I look back and I value that I worked with patients through that time and also work with patients through this time. I I can say that all of those former programs that existed don't really exist anymore because we're going to talk about why those general detoxes kind of don't move the needle for most people anymore.
Hmm.
So, detox as a program has had to shift into being very specific and focused now, which is really wild that in 20
Right.
years, we went from the scenario of most people could detox, do these organized programs, and come out of 28 days. Because often 28 days was really a benchmark. There were there were very few people who didn't feel benefits from that.
Hmm.
That got through that program. If they went through the entire program,
They got some kind
they
of
got
result.
results.
Yeah.
Often it was weight loss, often it was more energy, often it was better sleep, but better everything. They looked their skin was better. I mean, the wow as a practitioner was really hard not to get kind of swallowed up by.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that was functional medicine at the very beginning, one core piece of it, which really kind of like entrenches you in the idea of nutritional dogma and supplementation where wow, this could really help people to feel better.
Hmm.
But I think it's important then to kind of step back and say, well, why did that work then? And why is detox very different now? Because most people are not doing these very generalized detox because they don't move the needle the same way. So let's, I think, kind of that story together that, we have talked on these last few podcast episodes about how the state of human health now is rapidly changing. That if you're trying to understand you and your own personal health context, it's complicated. You know, we could be in a room of 20 people and we all have different health capacity. 20 years ago, you might have been in a room of 20 people and maybe 10 of them would still have health.
Yeah, it's a good point. Health was more of a default then.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that comes back to the bigger story of this concept of redox potential, that we see human health through the lens of having a healthy redox potential that fills your entire self. All of your cells then are storing battery charge, and you're the collective of that charge. It's a really simplified way of talking about it.
Right.
This is stuff that we reserve sort of for our, if you want to learn more, we've got our membership, our community of learners. There's always free learning. There's some membership learning, but ultimately, at the very simple way of thinking about it, humans have health if they have redox potential, and that is a must. Now, 20 years ago, before we really evolved this modern tech story, most or many people at that point, I would say most, because most of the patients that I worked with responded really well to all of the traditional functional medicine modalities: detox, dietary change, exercise, supplementation. Some simple focuses really often move the needle. Now, why? It's this deeper concept that if you've got all of this stored charge, it's quite possible that you can feel better in the short term if the things that you're doing are bringing you access to some of that stored energy.
Okay.
Now, is that really healing for your future health?
That's not health.
That to us is not health. That ultimately, if you're doing these things, you may feel better, but you're actually pulling health from your future self to then feel better in this moment.
Okay.
And that's a lot of what the health and wellness space is really doing.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything that's currently out there for products in general is.
Yes. That then we have to kind of we run our thinking through this lens when we're trying to look at health and wellness trends. So detox has always been a really strong health and wellness trend, but detox from 20 years ago is really different than detox now. So then if I bring you back to the beginning, gosh, year after year, I would do tons of detoxes with patients, yearly detoxes, group guided detoxes. I mean, this was really probably how I spent most of the first 10 years of my practice. And it was then, if you've been journeying along with the story, I started doing more learning and I had some difficult cases. And it's kind of when I started being exposed to this concept of redox potential. And that was kind of in 2014. I didn't understand it at the time. I think misread the tea leaves and took it as, oh, I'm going to do CrossFit. And then that became a thing. And in the short term, I thought that made sense and that you just, eat a ketogenic diet and all the things and that would work. And, I weave the story because there was a period in the middle there where I very much understood that maybe detoxing, as I was taught, wasn't the way. I didn't know really how to transition it because that was so deep in my way of practicing and my thinking. being really embedded in the functional medicine world, it was so hard to step outside of that box. And it took years to be
Mhm.
able to do that in an effective way. Here we are into that 2026. So a lot of time has passed, but I can see why detox evolved as it did, because it's, really sold to people as a way to feel better.
Mhm.
And when you do not feel well,
You'll do anything.
you will do anything to feel better.
Mhm.
But then, detoxing became this specialization. So especially around just health and wellness in general and functional medicine in general, as humans lost redox potential, then health started to be lost. So functional medicine was always really good at just coming up with the solution.
Mhm.
And that was a perfect marriage, that now you had potentially more things to detox from.
Right.
Then instead of people just feeling a little unwell, now people were feeling really unwell. Again, because if you understand redox potential as people born get older but don't have the same redox potential as people born further back
Mhm.
and maybe older now. These are now really different people that we're working with. Their base, their foundational level of health, their foundational level of redox potential is so wildly different
Right.
that, on the surface, it's hard to understand. A patient looks like a patient. If they're a patient with IBS, they look like a patient with IBS, but
It's really
really,
not the truth.
it's not the truth at all.
Mhm.
So initially, though, detoxing really shifted to be more specialized. So
Okay.
then I think it became a lot of SIBO and kind of IBS. So like very, very like gut focused. And it kind of moved from just liver detox and it became like liver GI detox.
Interesting.
I mean, actually, all you have to do is go back in time and see all of the major functional medicine, like supplement companies.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look at all the
All you
products.
have to do is like see how the products evolved.
Yeah.
Go back to like a Metagenics and a Zymogen, like
You can see what the
basically
market,
you can
the
see what
focus.
they created
Yep.
as the symptoms came out, which really is just a reflection of global redox potential in humans starting to degrade.
Mhm.
So how perfect functional medicine would come up with these solutions. And for a while that worked.
Right.
But then there would be more, So now we're at times where now it's very much patients coming in saying, I think I need to do a parasite cleanse. I think I need to do a mold cleanse. I think I need to do uh Epstein-Barr cleanse, a Lyme cleanse. Like, now it's very much immune focused.
Mhm.
And it's not to say that these things are not happening for people, but you can see where the degrade of human health has degraded rapidly.
Mhm.
And that rate of acceleration has far exceeded what functional medicine has been able to offer solutions to. So
Right.
now I have had many a patient who comes in and they do these detoxes and they don't feel better at
Would
the end of them. In
do they ever
fact,
feel
they
worse?
might feel a lot worse.
Mm.
I mean, we've had a few patients come into us spending thousands of dollars and they're almost
Now
dead.
they're, like, debilitated.
Debilitated. I hate to
Right.
say dead. Like I laugh. Maybe we've got a mutual friend, and he'll probably listen to this. But he's a good example. We won't say who it is. But I remember when he came in, he said, "I pretty sure I'm gonna die."
Mhm.
Like I remember the conversation as a early 40s
Yeah,
guy.
he's like, "I don't think I'll make it through the year."
No, spent thousands of dollars in a matter of weeks doing cleansing of his body. And how I see this now, thankfully, this happened at a time where I had a pretty clear vision of redox potential that he had no battery
Mhm.
power to pull from. So now, if you throw in these really intense detoxification protocols, but there's nothing to work on internally, you can really throw a body into chaos and create a real downward spiral. That's that's quite hard to bring someone back from
Right.
unless they're very motivated for true health.
Mhm.
And not everyone is with the mindset of being able to do that. And I think that's the hardest thing is we've had patients come in at that moment, and sometimes it's so far, their health is so far gone, they can't see any future with health in it.
Right.
And that is a real shame
Mhm.
that, medicine has really created that for people.
Mhm.
Now, thankfully, there's plenty of our patients that have our support and support at home and whatever the mindset to change things. But it
Right.
really is the moment of like, I think he would say, like, I had no choice but to give crazy a try
Yeah, this was it.
because now it sounds really unfamiliar.
Mhm.
Here I am now speaking a totally different language from functional medicine. It's not just maybe just, the thought is, oh, it wasn't the right detox. It wasn't enough parasite
Yeah, it's
cleansing.
always more
It's always more.
time, more
You
time.
need more. If you do this for longer, if you do it for 3
Or you
months,
didn't do it.
yeah.
Yeah, you didn't
And
actually do it.
right.
Yeah.
And then basically there's always another offering.
Mhm.
And we've had patients with like years of mold cleansing, again, thousands of dollars and no more health, but the promise is generally more time,
Mhm.
more protocols, layer the protocols. And I think this really reveals that all of conventional centralized medicine is just at the point where
They're out of like
they don't know.
any answers
Because if you
whatsoever.
do not understand redox potential now in 2026, this concept of detox is blown up,
Mhm.
that most people are not going to get the benefit that they would have gotten in 2006. Now, it's not to say that people, especially, I mean, I see this so much on social media, all these people promising, like, oh, I healed myself. It took me a year to heal my mold illness. It took me 2 years to heal my chronic Lyme disease. It took, 3 years to parasite cleanse. Like, this is sort of the promise, is like this whole idea of it's going to take a really long time, but if you do all the right protocols, you will heal. I push back on that. If those people, it's not to say that they don't feel better. If those people get benefits, they probably had some redox potential to
Mhm.
tap into. Sometimes there's more to the story, that they changed their
Changed other
environment. They
things.
did other things that they didn't realize were actually supporting them and kind of pulling in things of biophysical realm that might have actually helped them, but they
Right.
didn't know it.
Right.
But there's absolutely no supplement that's going to heal you. There's no protocol that's going to heal you. You have to heal yourself by learning what is redox potential and being okay with flipping the way you think about it,
Mhm.
that you've got a choice. If your choice is that you just want to feel better, you might be able to step back, analyze your redox potential. If you've got some redox potential, you could do a detox, and that could be a choice.
Right.
It's a choice.
But you might be borrowing time.
You're always, not
Yeah,
even might, you're always
definitely.
borrowing time.
Mhm.
But I think it's clear that everyone has to choose their own journey.
Right.
That is an option.
Right.
And that is generally the option that functional medicine is offering to you.
Mhm.
Or there's the other option, which is doing the work to actually rebuild your redox potential, knowing that that's a whole different journey. It's an
Right.
uncomfortable journey. It's not always doing the things to feel better. In fact, you might even feel a little worse before you feel better. It's going to probably take a long time. It might mean changing your environment. It's
Mhm.
not the easier method, but that's how we see health.
Yeah, true health.
True health is only that way. You cannot detox before you have redox potential if you want to have health. You can detox before you have redox, but it will always be using time within you. You will
Right.
be borrowing time from your future self. And that's kind of what we're trying to bring awareness to today, that it's something you just don't want to fall prey to. It it doesn't mean that there's not some thought around detoxing being a part of the journey. But once you realize that redox potential builds then all of these normal detox pathways, all the things that I learned in medical school and the biochemistry books and the phase 1 and the phase 2 detox happens when you have redox potential.
Right.
There's no pill that you have to take. There's no protocol that you have to do.
It's just normal.
It's the normal state of being a human being who has health. Now, that's the deeper science stuff, and we will absolutely do that deep dive in our part 2 for our members. And I think that's not what, not everyone wants to know that deeper stuff. We've got plenty of patients that are like, just tell me what to do
Right.
and I'll do it. So I think, we've got some free learning on redox potential in our Field Lab membership site. So that's there.
Start there.
For the kind of easy building. We're going to do our deeper dive in our part 2 of the podcast. And then, we've got some really good learning modules for those that want to learn more. But ultimately, this is the only way that we can actually have health.
Right.
Because we're in a time where everyone is really losing health. Like, we are no longer with health as the default state. And it's, again, been lost rapidly, and it's rapidly accelerating, and it's rapidly showing up in our younger people. I feel very strongly I would never detox how I detoxed patients 20 years ago ever again the same way. I just wouldn't do it, and I would do it very cautiously if I was ever doing it with young people.
Especially young people.
Especially young people. I mean, I think it's really kind of a malpractice situation that has been still normalized.
Right.
But I think a lot of younger people push back. They can't really do it. They can't do, they feel
They just don't have
horribly.
the energy
They
for it.
they just cannot do it. So normally they'll bow out. They'll say, I was going to do this detox, but I felt really poorly by, 5, 6, 7 days in. And that's such an important metric that
Right.
we need to learn about redox potential. We need more people to understand redox potential. This is the stuff that should be taught to kids. This should be in health class. Like, this is what a normal conversation needs to be at the point in our life when we're really trying to learn about health. So that way, when we're older, we don't question why we have no health
Right.
or question the need to do detox.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't even become part of
Really,
the
it
equation.
doesn't become part of the equation, but it's really a journey of being able to move past the normalcy of detox in the functional medicine world.
Right.
There's probably not one person that's not done some form of detoxing.
And I think there's a strong memory of it working, so people like to go back to that over and over.
True. I mean, I have patients
For the older person.
who will say, gosh, they'll still say, are you going to do like
Yeah,
the
we get
active
asked all the time.
detox? Like, can you do the group detox? Man, I never felt better than doing that. I lost 10 pounds. I felt great. It like recharged my year.
Right.
And not even our patient population fully journeys along. We have some patients who just want to be told what to do and aren't interested in the deeper science. We get that. But there's far more people now being interested in being told the truth. Where do you go if you actually want to heal? I mean,
Right.
that's the problem, is that now most people are not going to their doctor I mean, I'm fortunate that I've been in the same place for 20 years. So, you know, I have patients I've had for 20 years.
Right.
It's a rare case these days that people have a doctor they've seen for 20 years.
Just doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. Everyone's transient, um, or doing different things. You know, everyone's burned out. I mean, I have so many colleagues like they're already burned out 20 years in practice. I would be burned out too if I was still doing the same thing over and over again and not getting anywhere.
Mhm.
I mean, I would be frustrated too. People are not getting healthier; they're getting sicker, and those modalities don't really work anymore.
Other practitioners must be seeing that, right? That these
I wish
detoxes don't,
that were
or are they still working with a population that's older, maybe has the ability to access them, and it maybe not moves the needle, but shows a little bit of an effect and it keeps them going? I don't know.
I mean, I can tell you that I don't, in current times, don't have a lot of interaction with my functional medicine colleagues
Mm.
anymore, mostly because I'm quite on the edge,
Right.
and the conversations I've had in the last few years are really with functional medicine practitioners that are, you know, afraid to pay their bills.
Right.
I
Yeah.
hate to say this, but
It's just
you can make
reality.
a lot of money doing detoxes.
Hmm.
You don't need a lot of patience if you want to do these fancy detoxes. And that makes it very difficult for those that are practicing functional medicine to see the reality.
Right.
Now, I do have a few closer colleague friends, and I ask them, and they will absolutely tell me everyone is sicker. Nothing works the same. It's hard to understand, but it's also hard to understand because none of us were taught the biophysics.
Exactly.
And you literally have to teach it to yourself because you're not learning it from anything on the medical side.
No.
There's no continuing education for biophysics. And it's really sad because the few times I've gone to conferences recently, because I have to for credits, that I'll always find somebody to talk to. And man, they're so fascinated by biophysics.
100%. They
Fascinated.
know something's missing.
Yes. Um, but the only, like recently, the only practitioner that really was interested was a retired practitioner. He had nothing to lose.
Right.
He didn't have to worry about how are patients going to come to see me if I have nothing to offer them, if I can't sell them a detox, what do I have?
Hmm.
It's a really troubling time. So then where do people go? They go online,
Right.
social
Social
media,
media.
and all of these new promises, these new, you know, AI supported lab companies, the this, the that, you know, all these, you know, actually all these people who have no medical license to lose.
Exactly.
You know, you've got a lot of people making suggestions to people that are absolutely medical advice, but what do they have to lose?
Right.
There's no medical license to lose. In fact, it's literally the Wild West on social media because you can say whatever you want.
Yeah. There's nobody really stopping
Ultimately,
you.
what do you have to lose?
Hmm.
Maybe you'll be silenced and your platform will go dormant for a month. You know, it's
Right.
like they're on every platform there is. So,
Mhm.
so it's really hard because now we just have this noise of everyone promising answers. It's this, it's that. But I come back to detox right now. It's like parasite cleansing, mold detox. It's sort of moved beyond just the for a while it was like the Lyme protocols, but now it's very much parasite mold. And that's concerning because if that's something you're battling, you absolutely have a redox potential problem.
Mhm.
And that's something you must learn about and learn to correct before you ever dive too deep into detoxing. If you did, if you've already done it, if
Right.
you've already detoxed, you feel better, you need to check yourself though and realize if you do not rebuild that redox potential you stole from,
Mhm.
something else will come up in your near future.
So it's really just an indicator that you have a dead battery, which is a much
Or a dying battery.
dying
Right.
battery. Yeah.
Yes. Or you know, potentially the redox potential in your liver is weak. Maybe it's not in your brain, but this is important to realize like you're a complex human. Why you wake up every day is because you've got all of these cells, you have all of these systems, and you can pull from one to support another. And that's the trap of being an adaptable human,
Doesn't just fail.
is that it doesn't fail.
Yeah.
That was the evolutionary choice, was that we could keep going and subtract and survive, but for how long? And for how long with health?
Right.
I think our kind of bold statement here is that in 20 years, I've seen more loss of health than I could have ever expected. I'm glad I paid attention to it about 10 years ago when I first started seeing weird cases that just didn't respond how everyone else had responded before. They were my first insight into poor redox potential. Now, though, those cases are my norm.
Right.
Now, everyone walking in the door pretty much is
It's on there, like it's last resort.
a last resort, which is really unfortunate, and reflects, though, that there's so many people who need help. There's, so much now in like the health and wellness space. It's like everything now is health and wellness. In the last 10 years, that's been an explosion. That means something. If everyone is looking for health and healing and looking for it online and not through medicine, like, we're in a real crisis moment. Redox potential is the story of returning humans to health, and it's really a not medical story.
Right.
But I think we should probably kind of tie that up and like reserve, because I think then the next conversation is going deeper into the science of that, which I think then we should do in a part 2.
Yeah.
Is there anything we missed?
One question I always get is around like forever chemicals or the microplastics. Does this story still apply there? Because I think people hear mold, Lyme, parasites, and somehow they kind of put the synthetic chemicals and the man-made stuff in a different category and want to target those as well, and somehow think we don't have the capability to maybe get rid of that stuff or handle it,
or that a detox will get rid of it.
Right. It's the same story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can say with certainty, there's no detox that's going to remove you of those things throughout every cell in your body.
Right.
There's no promise that's going to, like, that's a promise, but
it's just not reality.
I'm going to say that's just an intuition, but there's no way, based on how biophysics works, that you could detox those chemicals and they're gone.
Right.
Now, there might be examples of people showing you certain, like, I actually just had this moment where Brian Johnson, our like $1 million biohacker,
biochemistry guy.
Yeah, he claimed that he like detoxed, I think it was, I could be wrong, I think it was like plastics in his semen, and then it turned out that he could detox and it went to 0.
Right.
Now,
well, where is it now? That's the question.
Where is it? Not everywhere else in your body? Did it go somewhere else? Like, I mean, this is sort of the pushback. You can't see this in every.
There's no way to measure that. Yeah.
But it's a really good point. And so
that's why I kind of want to.
Yeah, I'll give you a little flavor. That's clearly a deeper dive of the science. But if you look at, the science of physics and kind of go deeper, it's quite fascinating that it's, quite been proven that the molecule of melanin is able to actually detox everything.
Yeah.
And if you look at the human design, we are designed to build massive amounts of internal melanin. In fact, there's a really cool article, and it describes how your mitochondria drives melanin production. It's like the mitochondria tan the cell. You actually have built within us, when you're doing normal redox potential, the ability to produce the detoxification molecule that would make this a non-issue.
Right.
However, this is the story of light. it's the story that gets very manipulated in the wellness space that, light is the end all be all. It's a arm of a bigger story, but you're not just going to go outside and get some sunlight and build melanin and it's going to be magic.
No.
Like, this is then understanding redox potential through the whole lens of light paired with water that your mitochondria makes for you that's deuterium depleted, plus then this magnetism created by melanin and your mitochondria in location next to each other. And when you see that organizational design, you realize, or we realize, that we were meant to detox. This is how humans survived for so long, navigating environments that were wildly different than where we emerged.
Right.
And it's because of that design. But again, we're going to go in the deep dive there about POMC and the melanin networks and melanocortin and how that really then creates this opportunity to detox. I'm going to say for free. I realize it's not
Yes.
free.
Right.
It's human work. Humans are
always work.
meant for work.
Mhm.
But the end result of that is building a human existence that has health, that can do detox, that we somehow realized we lost, but didn't realize how to get it back. And because everything about we are in America, so we are in a culture where it's a solution-based culture.
Mhm.
We can give you something
Right.
that you can pay for to get your health back.
Mhm.
And that was such an elegant solution that functional medicine sold to the public. But I think we're in a time where we just have to step outside of that if you want to actually have health
Absolutely.
in 20 years from now.
Yeah, you have to reconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come to part 2.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you must listen to the words that the people you are following are saying. If they're not talking about redox potential, if they're not talking about POMC, if they're not talking about neuromelanin, if they're not talking about deuterium depleted water the mitochondria make, if they're not talking about magnetism built in your mitochondria, do not make them your guru.
So if somebody restores their redox potential, do they never need a detox?
We are in times where everyone's using AI, they're analyzing everything through AI, and AI is really good at giving you a biochemical-based story. But when you realize that nature and then you within it are this decentralized system, it actually, creates a freedom that we didn't have before. Plus, if everyone knew about redox, then
Can't sell them
you
anything.
can't sell anyone anything.
No.
So how would medicine make $5 billion a year? It just wouldn't happen. And how would anyone have a existence on social media if it had nothing to sell you? If you're looking for the answer, then you have to start learning these concepts.